There's a piece of advice that gets repeated all the time in gaming spaces, especially when the conversation turns to adult players. If you're in your 30s or older, if you've got a job, a family, responsibilities, or just exhausted, people will tell you the same thing. They'll say, stick to short games. Play the tight, linear, 6 to 8 hour campaigns. Play games that respect your time. Avoid the massive open world games. Avoid the 100-hour RPGs. And for a long time, I agreed with that advice. It makes sense on paper. Less free time should mean shorter experiences, right? But the more I've paid attention to how I actually feel when I sit down to play games as an adult, the more I've started to realize something. I don't think that advice is a one-size-fits-all type of approach. In fact, I think for a lot of adults that are chasing short games actually adds stress instead of relieving it. Here's what usually happens with short games. You finish the game, then the credits begin to roll. Then you get that nice little dopamine boost and the sense of accomplishment. Then, almost immediately, you're back at square one. Now you have to decide what to play next. You open up your storefront of choice, scrolling through an endless list of options. Maybe stop and read some reviews, hop over to YouTube and watch some trailers or gameplay videos. And once you finally decide on the next adventure to jump into, you begin the friction phase. You have to learn new controls and figure out a new UI, memorize new mechanics, learn the names of 20 new characters, understand a new upgrade/progression system. That onboarding process takes a lot of mental energy. Depending on the game, it may require college coursework to understand it completely to get the maximum benefit of all systems involved. And when you're an adult who just worked a full 40-hour week, whose brain is already fried from meetings, deadlines, schedules, and notifications, the friction matters. Sometimes it matters so much you don't play anything at all. You sit there staring at your library, feeling weirdly exhausted by the idea of starting something new. Gaming starts to feel like work. I'd be lying if I said this doesn't happen to me a lot more than I realized before doing this video. I want to flip the usual narrative on its head. We've been trained to look at long games, those massive open world RPGs, as time sinks. We look at the map size and get intimidated. We think to ourselves, I don't have time for this nonsense. But what if that framing is backwards? What if a long game isn't a burden, but a sanctuary? What if it's not something you have to conquer, but somewhere you get to return and escape to? When you play a long game over weeks or months, something interesting happens. You stop feeling pressure. You already know there's no way in hell you're going to complete it front to back anytime soon. When that realization hits, the anxiety disappears. You're no longer rushing and racing to complete the game. You're playing just to escape into the game. That shift matters more than people care to talk about. There's a kind of comfort and familiarity that I think we undervalue as adults. When you boot up a long game you've been playing for a while, you typically don't have to learn anything new, unless a new expansion or DLC drop that completely changed any of the core functions. You know the rules, you know how movement feels, you know how all the systems work. You're returning to a place you understand. That familiarity lowers your cognitive load in a way short games often don't. And if we're being honest, cognitive load is the real resource we're managing, not just time. This is why I think long games work so well for adult life. They remove decision fatigue, they remove onboarding stress, they remove the constant pressure to make progress. A long game doesn't care if you play for 20 minutes or 2 hours. It doesn't care if you advance the story or just wander around aimlessly. It gives you permission to exist inside of this world instead of performing a job. One of the biggest misconceptions about long games is that they demand more from you. In reality, they often demand less. Short games are tightly paced. They're always pushing you to advance forward faster. The narrative urgency is constant. That can be great, but it also keeps you on the safe wavelength that is used for work. Fast, urgent, optimized. Long games tend to operate on a slower wavelength. And when you're coming home from a life that's already fast and demanding, that slower rhythm matters. Leisure that moves at the same speed as work doesn't feel like rest. This is where mechanics that people often criticize, things like hunger systems, durability, travel time, or maintenance, start to feel different over long periods. When you're reviewing a game or trying to beat it in a week, those systems feel tedious. They slow you down. But when you're inhabiting a game over months, they become grounding. They create rhythm. They turn actions into rituals instead of chores. Eating, resting, repairing gear, traveling slowly through the world, these things anchor you. They make the game feel like a place instead of a checklist. I think adults, especially busy adults, underestimate how valuable that sense of inhabiting a new space really is. Most of our lives are fragmented beyond belief. We're stuck in traffic, we're in meetings, we're switching contexts constantly, we're managing other people's needs. To have a world, even a virtual one, where you have complete and total agency, where nothing is truly urgent, where you can decide how to spend your time without consequence, that's a luxury that needs to be appreciated. And long games are uniquely good at providing that. There's also something else going on as we get older that doesn't get talked about enough. Our capacity to constantly learn fancy new systems diminishes. Not because we're less intelligent, but because, quite frankly, we're tired. Our mental hard drives are at capacity. Learning a complex new combat system every couple of weeks is exhausting. Not impossible, just exhausting. By sticking with one large game for a long time, you bypass all of that fatigue. You don't have to relearn how to play. You get to stay in a flow state instead of constantly climbing back into one. This is why I think long games often feel more respectful of adult time than shorter ones. Respecting your time doesn't always mean cutting it short. Sometimes it means being consistent. Being there when you come back. Letting you engage at your own pace and on your own terms. Here's a metaphor for you. People see massive games just like climbing a mountain. They assume that they need to jump into it all at once to knock it out. They think that if they can't reach the goalpost as quickly as possible, it's not worth starting. But you don't have to jump to the top of the mountain in one go to enjoy it. You can stop to rest, you can explore other pathways, you can come back to it whenever you want. The mountain isn't going anywhere, and neither are you. As we get older, our relationship with time changes. We have less to give, and when we do give it up to something, especially leisure, we want it to give something back. Not stress or pressure or more decisions to make. We want calm, familiarity, and presence. For a lot of adults, long games do that better than short ones ever could. So if you're staring at a massive game and feeling intimidated by its length, don't be. And that's what she said. You don't have to finish it. You don't have to optimize it. You don't have to play it the right way. You can just exist in it. And if you find a world you love, you're allowed to stay as long as you want, rent-free. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.